James, let's let him in. I can't wait. I've been waiting since yesterday when you were on the program to have an additional conversation with you. Hello, my friend.
Mellow greetings, Juliana.
You made it through. You made it through the evening.
Made it through. I haven't been to bed yet.
Oh, my man. God bless it. How you sound much more awake and alive than the guy from the New York Times who was on last night, this morning, sounding all exhausted and depressing.
Number one, I live for this, and number two, Red Bull gives you wings.
Hey, thank you so much for coming on here today. I really appreciate it. It's what do you make of everything that's going on? I just want to toss it over to you. We've been talking to Richard Wolff. We've been talking about some of the good news for progressives, although there were some losses as well. Your thoughts?
I couldn't be happier. I mean, I guess I could be happier that, I'm boggled that
Bernie?
it was this close. No. I mean, I just boggled that it was this close because let's be honest, it's not that this was, people weren't going out and it wasn't an election of, Biden versus Trump and, whose personality or politics people like the most. This was essentially a referendum on Trump and the encroaching fascism that he's dragging along in his wake. And
people still like that. A lot of half of the people still were all for it.
That's the surprising part. I was surprised that many people came out. But as far as the way states are falling, I mean, I do a lot of the number breakdowns. This is literally what I do. And there was only really a couple of surprises. And actually the big shocker of the night was, and it should hold now. I'm watching the last of the counts come in. But Biden flipping Maricopa County in Arizona was enormous. That was the game changer.
Talk about why that's important. I saw that you were writing about that in our act.tv's communication line. Talk about why that's important and what happened there.
Well, Maricopa County, amongst other things, is famous for Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who Trump then pardoned after he was convicted, and who was the worst sheriff in the world, and he was anti-immigrant, and he used to make people convicted of petty offenses like sleep in sweat boxes outdoors in the 100-degree weather in Arizona, and then put them in pink jumpsuits and make them pick up trash on the side of the road to quote emasculate them.
He's like a show us your papers kind of guy.
Yeah, he's just not a pleasant individual, and he actually got convicted of a bunch of stuff. Trump pardoned him. And then they tried to float him out to win a seat in the state, and he actually lost in the primary. But Maricopa County is sort of infamous for that anti-immigrant, anti-progressive, anti-left sort of place, and it's still cooking blue with almost 90% reporting. Biden's up by 3, and he wins Arizona and then floats into Nevada. It's because they flip Maricopa.
Oh.
So
well, thank you, Sheriff Joe, for being such a racist bastard. And I apologize to anyone who had to be the victim of that on our way to victory. But amazing how one county can cause so much both joy and chaos. Can you talk about why the people in Southern Florida are out of their minds?
So South Florida has its own unique thing, which is number one, it's a lot of northern transplants who, they make their money up north. They work in a union job, whatever. They get to retirement age, they sell their house and they move to Florida where there's no state income tax. So especially in Southern Florida, it's a very weird ratio of quote white voters. And then your Latinx vote down there, it's not like the Central American and Mexican sort of vote that you would get in Texas or Arizona amongst, Latino communities, because down there you have a lot of second generation people who escaped Castro. And the socialism buzzword has a lot more depth and meaning to people whose grandparents, used to tell stories at the fireplace at dinner time about living under Castro's regime. So when you see weird numbers and you're like, oh, it says Hispanic vote was like 50% Trump. How does that happen? That's how that happens in South Florida.
I know, but what the F? I'm sorry. Biden is not Bernie, as he pointed out, and Bernie is not he's not Mao, right? So he just wants people to have fucking health care. Oh, the oppression, I don't understand.
No, but to your point though, it usually comes down to very small districts. Like if Nevada goes Biden, it's because Clark County, which is Las Vegas, Biden's carrying by 5, it'll be that county that carries him. If you look at Michigan, when people went to bed last night, Michigan, Biden was losing by, I don't know, 5-6 points, but Wayne County, which is Detroit, which is 20% of the entire state's population, only had like a quarter of the votes counted. And people woke up this morning and it was 70% counted, and Michigan had flipped because Wayne was a 2.5 to 1 Biden ratio state. So
why did they not count Wayne first? It's not like Wayne is farthest to the west and would have the I'm just kind of, and what I'm pointing at is sort of the media narrative where we all went to bed depressed. We all woke up to the Washington Post. Well, you didn't, but those of us who did eventually crash out and army crawl our way up the stairs to actual bed. It wasn't a great night. And then in the morning you wake up and you ask Alexa to play you the New York Times or the Washington Post, and she plays you a litany of horrendousness. And then as you prepare your show, you find out that Biden looks like he is ahead it doesn't matter if he's ahead and 2% has been reported. He's ahead now, and a lot of it's been reported in Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Wisconsin. Yeah. So, what is with this media narrative? Even the supposed, New York Times and Washington Post, democracy dies in darkness. Yeah, democracy will also die in the light if you only shine the light on the narrative that fits the autocrats, purposes. I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, what to your point? No. To your question, why wouldn't they count Wayne County first? It's not that they don't count Wayne County first. It's that it's the most populous county in the state. It has the most polling and vote locations. It will have the most mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, the most random ballots that have to be manually counted because there's some kind of a red flag. So it takes the state the longest. Plus, let's be honest, it's not like Detroit is swimming in state and federal resources where they have a massive, county election board. So yeah, it's going to be the last county because it's literally the poorest and most populous county in the state. I mean, that's just what happens. Philadelphia has its own set of problems, which was Philadelphia was one of the states where they weren't allowed to start counting the mail-in ballots or absentee ballots until the polls opened yesterday. So there have been, places in Philly where they've had mail-in ballots sitting in boxes for 2 weeks and no one could count them, which was why when you went to bed last night, only like 20% of the votes in Philadelphia were counted yet. Pittsburgh had a similar issue. And again, those are two counties that go 2.5 to 1 or 3 to 1 ratio for Biden, where only a quarter of the votes were counted. So, people seeing it a day later, how the hell did Biden, pick up 8 points in Pennsylvania? Because they didn't count the votes. That's why.
Which is Trump's whole strategy. Don't count the votes. Moving over to Texas. How significant do you think the voter suppression efforts there were in keeping it red down below?
So I have sort of a different philosophy on Texas, although we should actually talk to Rebecca, who's another Act TV contributor, about that because she lives in Texas. So it's stuff that she monitors on a granular level.
Let's call her on the phone.
Oh, we should totally bring her. You should bring her on soon and talk about that. But for me, Texas, the weird thing about Texas is because their population shifts so much. They get tens of thousands of people move there from California every year who work in the, gas or natural gas industries. And they have plants in places like California, Texas, Louisiana. And you get a massive amount of California transplants into Texas, which is why you're starting to hear things about it becoming, a purple state or, a showdown state or a toss up. I never thought Texas was going to be close. I mean, the tally right now is Trump's up by 7. Even if he closes to 6 or so, that seems about on brand. It's going to take him another 20 years to get it to be an actual purple state, but it's moving in the right direction as far as, on the ground voter suppression, especially as it relates to, a lot of the cities that are closer to the border, which have a much lower white population. I don't even know, honestly, what's been going on down there.
Well, they put the one box in Houston. That's it. There was one box that everybody had to put their stuff in.
That we saw. I thought they did even worse stuff since then.
Probably. I don't know. It's hard to keep track of all this bullshit. What have you been? So you also are one of our go-to guys for knowing stuff when it comes to what the what should we call it? Militia groups? How do you put them all under one term? I don't know. Are up to these days. It was kind of quiet in terms of militia group, action yesterday. And as I was reporting today, that 500 plus demonstrations are planned to protect the results across the country. I just had this feeling like, well, that's kind of good, but also isn't that like sitting ducks, like just putting out a bunch of targets? I don't know. Your thoughts? Have you seen anything so far to report on?
I saw a few things. I had actually a friend in the Detroit area who said that at like 2 a.m. during the recount, there was kind of like a mini Brooks Brothers type riot in one of the voting precincts. Only it was more militia-ish people, not dudes in Brooks Brothers suits.
Yeah,
no suits to be had. There were a lot of like pictures and short video clips floating around on Twitter and the internet yesterday. Oath keepers and other militia groups that were stationing close to polling locations, or people with huge pickup trucks with enormous Donald Trump banners would just like park their trucks outside of polling locations and walk away and leave. So it looked like a giant, Trump advertisement.
What I want to do is take Prius and put a big Trump flag on it just to fuck everybody up.
Yeah, one with a coexist bumper sticker. Yeah, that would go well. No, I think you're going to see more of it as Trump gets more desperate. You know what Trump does? He gets, the diarrhea of the mouth. He starts saying the quiet part out loud. He can't help himself. And as he gets more desperate, as these states continue to flip, like unless something wacky happens, they're going to be calling Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, like all for Biden in the next day. Like Trump's going to start to get more desperate as it looks like his use Pennsylvania and the courts to, win the close race. Mm-hmm. Like that tactic might completely fall out of his bag if, all those states flip and Biden hits 270 before Pennsylvania even gets called. So the more desperate Trump gets, the more I think you're going to hear him, quote, reaching out to his base about how it's a scam and the deep state and the Democrats and the radical left are stealing the election and stealing democracy. And what are we going to do about it, people? Like, it's only going to take him one, impassioned plea to his people for the can of worms to get opened. And I don't know how bad it gets then. Like, I wouldn't buy into all the sensationalism. Oh, we're going to have another civil war. It's not.
They want that. Nobody else wants it. They're just, you do it then with yourselves.
Yeah, accelerationists live for that. Like people in their head think of stuff like Mad Max or like The Walking Dead and like fantasize themselves. Like, what would it be like if that happened? What it would be like is you would be one of the 95% of the people who died before the TV show or movie even started. But somehow you think you're Rick Grimes. I assure you, you're not. So, that's but no, you're going to see a certain amount of anger and rage, and people aren't going to deal with it well. And it's especially the, lift kit 20 by 20 Trump nylon flag truck drivers with the coal burning kits. Like it's going to be those dudes.
Do we have these guys here? I want a photo. Usually I have one. I guess I'll just have to stick with this guy. Oh man.
So, I mean, all in all, as far as results are going right now, like
we've won.
I don't want to say mathematically, I'll say that mathematically speaking, if everything holds the way it's moving, based on ratio and population and remaining votes and votes that have been cast already, then yes, Biden will hit 270. Now, again, we've talked about it before. Today isn't the end. Today is actually the beginning of the 60-day legal and marketing sprint to keep Trump from staying in office. So,
well, I think one of the things that's important is to really visualize exactly who is like, how are these votes being counted? It's like they're being counted by old ladies who are counting mail ballot votes. That's who Trump is saying is the deep state. These are like, these are little election officials counting every vote, verifying, checking boxes. And we have so many more people voting by mail than like through the Blackwater Blackwater wasn't it Blackwater who owned I'm getting it wrong. Who are those people who under Dick Cheney owned the voting machines? I thought it was Halliburton. My bad. It's all those guys get smushed under one term in my mind. So we don't, it's a little weird for me to be like, we can actually trust the results. I'm like, wait a minute. For the last 5 years, we couldn't trust the result. 5 elections, we couldn't trust the results because of election tampering with electronic voting machines. But now we have paper ballots. It's everything I ever wanted for the most part. And we can actually trust the results because we have the receipts.
Yeah. And to be fair, yes, there are little old grannies counting votes, but the vast majority of states with mail-in voting, you get a state envelope that you mail the ballot back in, and they're all specifically sized. And they literally have ballot counting machines where they take sheafs of those and they load it in, and the machine will extract the ballot. And then it's like a Scantron from when you used to take tests in high school. So the only ones that actually have to get visually counted by, poll watchers and stuff like that are any ones that come up scanned with an anomaly. Somebody didn't fill in a bubble, or, somebody wrote something on a different line. So most of your ballots, of that sort actually get Scantroned. So that's why, again, people went to sleep and 20% of the votes were counted in Detroit. They woke up and 70% were counted. It's because they're loading, batches as they're getting them, and they load them into these big machines, and they just go, and they scan through 500 of them in a batch.
James, what are the odds that we're going to, if Biden wins, when Biden is, what do you call it? Declared the winner, or when he's officially given the thing. What are the odds that we could address in his administration? He's got a lot ahead of him. What are the odds that we can address this electoral college bullshit? Because he has the most voter turnouts. He's going to win the popular vote by a landslide. There has been no Republican to win by popular vote in the last, I think my lifetime. Perhaps the beginning of my life, I think they may have won.
Yes. The Republicans have won one popular vote in the last 24 years.
Oh, good. Well, I'm a little older than that, but yeah, right. So how are people ever going to, do you think there's any possibility that the Democrats might actually want to continue to win after Joe Biden wins and do something about this electoral college business?
If you want me to be honest, no. But I'll give the soft pedal answer on this, which is
do it. Give me the real James.
Well, let me start. The soft pedal answer is that it looks like the Democrats aren't going to flip the Senate. So that definitely reduces
that was sad.
The total amount of legislation you'll see get passed during a Biden-Harris 4-year term. It's just that's where you're at. As far as the larger picture, being honest, we essentially have two parties. As Professor Rolfe was speaking to half an hour ago, we have 40 different varieties of ketchup, but only two parties and two people you can essentially vote for president. This is, again, it's purposeful. It's by design. And the fewer people you have sitting at the table and the fewer people at the table who are making the rules, more often than not, the better it is for the people who are writing those rules. So I don't believe there's any onus for either the Republican Party leadership or Democratic Party leadership to want the Electoral College to go away, because it's a great wedge that they can always use, either one of them, it's interchangeable, on any year to turn around and go, we would have won if it hadn't been for that damn Electoral College, and then lather, rinse, repeat. So it's a great foil and a lever to have at their disposal.
Smart. Unfortunate, but good stuff there. What do you think we can see from, I was trying to address this yesterday in our roundtable, but I think it a little got off the map. As Biden is declared the victor, as we move forward, as Bernie gets off the bench again and stops being like Biden, and now is like, okay, Biden, let's do some more progressive stuff than even Biden. How do you think this is going to play out as the progressive left starts to, wake up and stop either having that discussion about whether they should vote for Biden or not and start realizing it's time to get back to work?
Again, the short term and the long term are two completely different things. Like in the short term, the progressive voices that are in the House and the Senate, they're going to go right back to cheering. They're going to point out that there was a number of, upstart candidates again who were pro Medicare for all, who, stole seats from either, Democratic incumbents during a primary or from Republican incumbents who were seated. And that'll give them some more tailwind going into the next 2 to 4 years. But honestly, that kind of change has to be a long-term thing where the older poll sitters, the people who have been in office for 10, 12, 14 terms, those people have to cycle out and the next generation of people who are completely, inspired by different subjects and different things, as those people become more of the majority and less of a, just like a little pocket in the corner.
Did we know this already? Mark Kelly won.
Really?
So Arizona has 2 Democratic senators. So
Nice.
we're closer to maybe Susan Collins will win. And I wonder what's going on.
I checked, actually, Susan Collins is going to win. It's one of the things that I see. And this is why I'm saying oh my God, they had a great night. Like Biden is literally going to ass stop Trump. Like he's just going to rum a boot hole in him. He's just boom, boom, boom. Like old Biden just kicking Trump down the block. It's amazing.
So this is McCain's old seat, in case you're just wondering. Mark Kelly is Arizona Democrat. Cindy McCain is likely to have a place, I've heard, in in Biden's administration or somewhere in the administration. I've heard this. I forget which. I think it was on the New York Times, but I forget which which position he was thinking about having her in. I know she works with like trafficked to protect children in some way, shape, or form. So the fact that she came out for Biden as McCain's wife, I think probably held some sway in that state. And anyway, so that's exciting. I'm trying to get a sense of the real times. Yes. Kelly could be sworn in as early as November 30th, which would be excellent. And the other win, of course, was where a Democrat beat GOP incumbent was in Colorado, where Hickenlooper won. Unfortunately, we did lose one Senate race, right? So we're only up by one more than we had.
I think it was Georgia, Purdue versus Ossoff. I think Ossoff's going to lose by 4. I think Susan Collins is going to retain. I think she's still up by 6 in Maine with like 85%. But el numero uno was the public referendum on Trump. I mean, again, that was the crux of the entire, what turned out to be the 2020 campaign. It was a referendum on Trump and the encroaching fascism and the xenophobia and all the other crap he was dragging with him. And, he did better with, I think, every group than he did in 2016, except for white men, which I think is kind of a stunner because, you would have thought that's the base. That's it right there. But I think he did actually better with Hispanic and Black voters than he did in 2016.
I don't understand that. I think I would like to talk to someone who knows about that. I've had people on the show where last week I had a woman on the show who was working I think it's from the group Emerge, and she works to get women, Democratic women and women of color elected to positions. And they've had some successes over the course of the last evening. But we touched on it a little bit, like Black Trump supporter. What is that?
I mean, it's for what it's worth. It's worth pointing out.
I feel like I don't know enough.
So, quote, groups, any demographic group, whether it's
I know
ethnicity or gender or age or whatever, there's always this odd media view that it's somehow a monolithic block of people. Like all Black people will do this, all women will do this.
I know,
and a lot of it is more. It has to do with regional again, because you would think on paper, you would go, oh, Hispanic votes. Surely Trump didn't get a single Hispanic or Latino vote anywhere in the United States. Like, that's what you would think if you listen to 4 years of Trump's, wall and immigrant rhetoric.
Well, did they listen to it? I mean, what the hell? But, I mean, these people are marching themselves into a gas chamber. It seems ridiculous.
But it's regional and it's economic. When you turn around and you see, like, Ice Cube talking about how Trump isn't all that bad. Yeah, because Ice Cube is worth $140 million. And guess what? His vote's going to be to protect as much of his $140 million estate as possible. Why? Because he has $140 million. Like,
yeah,
that will transcend
I know, but
a
not
whole
all
lot
of
of other
these,
stuff.
not all of these voters who voted for Trump who are in those groups have $140 million. You know, that I know that some people they just vote down the party line in terms of the abortion debate, right? And they're all excited because, and I know a lot of Latinos are Catholic, and the Catholics are like, you can't kill a baby, just kill the elderly. You know, they're fine with that, I guess, because you've sinned. The minute you come into this world, you've sinned, according to Catholics. But conceived zygotes are still innocent until they pop out of their mom's vagina, and then they're sinful, and we don't need to feed them or have a social safety net for them or anything.
It's very complicated.
That's pretty simple for Catholics like that.
so many variables and things going on there. To your point, like, this is why even, Biden turns out getting like 300 electoral votes and he wins by like 5 million in the popular and just makes Trump like a hard fetid footnote in history. Tomorrow's another day. There's still work. We got a loaded SCOTUS. We've got 26% of all judges at the federal level have been appointed by Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell in the last 4 years. Yeah. Like we have decades of that crap to get around. We have, there are states that had bad referendum votes, so there's street level work that has to be done in states for simple stuff like, decriminalization or legalization of marijuana so that you kill the stupid, racial war on drugs and school to prison pipeline in Black communities.
There's a couple of wins on that. Yeah. New Jersey legalized recreational marijuana. DC legalized mushrooms. So let's have our next conference there. What else? Anything else?
I saw Oregon went to almost full decriminalization, but I believe that back in the 80s, Oregon and Alaska were both decriminalized states. So I don't know that that's a huge surprise.
We made America great again, like the 80s. The 80s was not great.
Well, apparently it was great if you were living in Oregon or you were a stockbroker in New York City. But yeah, for everybody else, pretty much crap. Yeah, that's fair.
Good. So what do you look?
It's a good night.
What are you looking at? What are you looking at for your piece for today?
I think I'm actually going to have a real heartfelt one-to-one conversation with Trump people out there who don't understand math. And we're going to have a simple explainer. I'm going to discuss with them things called numbers and how when you take them and you put them together, they mean Trump lost.
Yes.
Apparently, this explainer is needed.
They don't, yeah. And they, the fact is until I had David Nywert from the investigative journalist on the program to talk about the different groups and how they have slightly different ideologies. I honestly did kind of lump them all in together.
Oh no.
I mean, you can't, nobody's an expert in everything, right? So, but when he said something like, well, these Proud Boys actually don't want democracy at all. They're straight up fascists. It was like, oh, well, how can we fight with like, well, let's let democracy play out with them and be like, no, thanks. I don't want democracy to play out. We want white people in charge and the men. So, that argument about like, we have to let the votes count. It just blew my mind that would have zero effect on those people.
It's there are very people. And by the way, I've seen you've had David on before. His work is amazing because it's a lot of the stuff that, I have one foot in the digital sense, anything from, doxing to IDing people in places like Charlottesville. Like that's stuff I've done for years. His work is great, but a lot of these, you lump right-wing militias all together, and some are 100% anti-government to the point where they're just accelerationists and they just want it all to burn. And there are others who are just, on the Trump train, while there are others who, solely want, white nationalism and race policies passed. And people look at the left, and again, it's we're talking about the thinking everybody's monolithic. Like everybody on the right, or a lot of people on the right, I shouldn't say everybody. People on the right look at the left and go, oh, look at them. They're all the Antifas. They're all banded together and they're coming for us. And I'm like, have you ever hung out with like for progressives and seen how many hours it takes just to decide on where to go for lunch or like what sandwich to get, like you are daft if you think there's like 70 different ideological groups of people on the left all coming together and going, this is what we're going to do. But the same.
My favorite is when you go to a meeting and then everyone introduces themselves. It takes like 16 hours. Not. I'm like, okay, I guess in day 2 we'll get to the business of this. Like, it's I don't even can't even.
No, but so you know they're not monolithic, but you're glad to see it when they all have one common thing, which is Trump losing doesn't help any of them. Like it doesn't help the Oath Keepers get any close to, the country any closer to making it more old school constitutional. It doesn't get Adam Waffen any closer to, making race worse of a wedge issue in America. Like Trump losing doesn't help a single one of these quote militia groups, regardless of where on the right spectrum they are. So that's something you can all celebrate.
Well, with that, we're going to continue to watch the results pour in, and we're going to continue to watch these right-wing militia groups do what they're going to do. And I hope everyone stays safe and stay well. Follow James from the internet, who has been allowed back on Twitter. Are you back on Twitter now?
No, I just put my banned Twitter account handle in there because everybody seems confused if you don't have a Twitter handle. Yeah. So that's my Twitter handle. Go look at my suspended account, and you can find me on the act.tv YouTube page, where I'm dropping a video every day. Where
you're watching us, in fact, right now, unless you're watching us on Facebook or Twitch, when in fact you can also see James whenever he's on this program on Facebook and Twitch. And soon, my hope is that you will be back to our Twitch channel. Is this correct? Am I too early to announce something so wonderful? Or to point at it? Or more will be revealed?
Winter is coming.
Looking forward to it. James from the internet, thank you for joining us with this post-election Act TV breakdown. I look forward to having you back on. We got to do that roundtable more often, at the very least.
I literally have nothing but free time now, so you know where to find me.
Excellent. I'm Julianna Forlano. If you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, where you will find me and James and Jocelyn and the other ones. There's a bunch of shows there. Messiah. Anyway, I have enjoyed this. Keep fighting, keep watching, subscribe, like, share, etc. If you're watching on Twitch, I love you people. And if you're watching on Facebook, I love you people too. Thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow.